Hello and welcome to episode 17 of our unofficial SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is November 13th, and together with Robert and Goran, we're here to talk about anything related to SAP on Azure. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm happy to announce that we have Philip again on our podcast, and he'll talk about Azure Cost Management. But before we switch over to Philip, as always, let's quickly take a look at some of the news from this week. I think probably one of the most important news was the opening up of the sign-up page on the TechEd 2020 event from SAP. So I think the page has been online for quite some time. But this week, finally the sign up, the registration went live. With this, obviously, also the session catalog and everything. So hurry up, sign in, take a look at the sessions, because actually, if you browse through the sessions, you will see that quite a lot of these sessions are already full. And there's maybe a waiting list, or maybe in some sessions the waiting list is already full. Because there are different session types actually. So there's also these workshops and stuff like that, and I think quite a lot of these workshops are actually, I don't know why. Yeah, just take a look and browse through the sessions, and then hopefully you'll be able to sign up to the sessions that you're interested in. Actually, since there are a lot of sessions again for TechEd, here 440 sessions that run through these 2 days, December 8th and December 9th. Quite a few people have started to highlight and propose some of the sessions. And DJ Adams, for example, has created a nice list of sessions that he thinks are relevant. So obviously this is a lot in the developer area, but I think this can also be a nice starting point to take a look at some of the sessions. So if you are attending TechEd, which obviously I can highly recommend, take a look and sign up to these sessions. There are also some sessions related to Microsoft, obviously. So we have new SAP or Azure offerings to accelerate migrations of your SAP landscapes. We have one moving ERP from on-prem to S4. Commerce Cloud has some Azure-related content. And also NetApp Files. Azure NetApp Files is talking, or NetApp in particular, obviously, is talking about Azure NetApp Files. And obviously, they are also talking about Azure. So make sure to subscribe or to sign up to these sessions. And I think this will be an interesting event. Another interesting thing that happened was asug had published some information or summary after SAP's Q3 announcements, and I thought it was really interesting, their take on where SAP is going. And then they also announced that they will have an interview with Christian Klein. And actually this interview happened yesterday. And I actually also thought that it was really interesting. First of all, what I really love is that Christian is actually really engaging with the community in this. Similar, like we talked about Gunther Rothärmel or Jürgen Müller and some others, really engaging with the community, really listening to questions from the community, from customers, and then openly in a forum like this, answering them. And I really loved simply the fact that Christian would take the time to really spend 1 hour with asug and talk about or answer questions that you could submit to asug here. And Christian talked about the integration, the interoperability, talked about the focus on data analytics and AI, and in general how SAP is reacting to customer demands, customers' requirements. And I thought that was really quite interesting. For example, he talked about that. I'm not sure if I fully quote, or if my quote is fully correct, but he talked about that starting next year or something like that, every SAP employee will get some dependencies on customer satisfactions. No, so regardless of you're in consulting, if you're in development, if you are in whatever, I don't know, X amount % of your bonus will depend on customer satisfaction. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. Is this good or bad?
No, but it clearly shows that there is a focus on customer.
I get it, of course.
And he talked a lot about this culture change, which I think that reminded me a lot of Microsoft. And I mean, there's this quote that Satya Nadella, I think, used. I don't think it's from him, but this culture eats strategy for breakfast, where it's really important that you not only talk to customers and you not only have a new strategy that says, look, from now on, we are an agile cloud company, but that you really have to take your employees on this journey. So you really have to change the culture of the company. And I think Christian...
Take a look why we left SAP, because we are searching for a company where we have a culture where we can grow. Yeah, I mean, at least for my perspective, and SAP need to do that, and it is the right way to do it, of course. I mean, this is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I think he's really trying to push this forward. Or another example that he mentioned was when Hasso started SAP, that he didn't know how accounting worked or how finance should look like, but he was really sitting next to the customer, learning from the customer, and then developing these tools. And he basically was saying, well, SAP is going back to this, really working together with the customers, learning with the customers, and then implementing industry cloud solutions or whatever. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I'm not sure if there will be a recording or if there already is a recording of this interview. It was an 1 hour exchange between asug and Christian, but I think it was definitely worth listening to it.
Right.
Good. So then our colleague Cameron again published a fantastic update. So he does this on a regular basis, where he provides a general update on anything around SAP on Azure. And Goran, you saw that this article was just published yesterday. So right. I have to admit, I didn't have time yet to look over it.
Yeah, I also quickly went through it, not in detail, but basically Cameron is a veteran on SAP on Microsoft, and he loves to write such a from time to time the general updates. So there are many information. So maybe we can just generally quickly go. So he's talking first on the update on the SAP documentation and put the links. Mm-hmm. So it's always, I mean, official documentation is the relevant official statement from Microsoft and from SAP on Microsoft, and the SAP notes as well, of course. When it goes to the SAP on Azure. He would also talk about, for example, on Linux, on high availability, this Linux kernel parameter keep alive is a generally important parameter. Customer keep to forget it to set specified. On Windows, I would say as well. A lot of escalation there. It's actually related to load balancer is cutting the connection from time to time, and you need whatever is server side behind needs to send those kind of keep alive parameter in order to prevent this, right? So one small but important piece you don't notice immediately, but after some productive running, yeah. So again, also on Windows, it's a similar story. He also would say, let's say, talk about a general storage configuration, and on HANA, and he mentioned, the Ultra Disk, SQL servers also basically updated. And if we go or different databases as well, then he would mention the second part, the issues with the Linux OMS agents, and support for Python. Mm-hmm. So basically, he said OMS agent would not run if OMS agent did not run or deploy after the Python was updated to Python 3, right? So he would show this. Again, he's also on the third part. He's talking about the issue with the SQL Server log write, which is basically related to the firewall and how you can do it and how you can check it. So it influences on the performance and the solution. Again, then he's on the fourth part listing interesting blogs on the SAP community site as well, also on the LinkedIn. On the last one, he's talking about also the monitoring part on the SAP on Azure. Then he would mention, Oracle, Linux, and PTP timer issue. He would then sixth part would talk about the Azure CLI. Yeah. And
Python
after
3.
Python 3 update, yes, it's a similar part. Yeah, interesting. Seventh part is interesting. It's a license key. So basically, typically, a license key would be it's bound to the unique ID of the VM. And basically, if you would, let's say, recreate the VM or do something, the new unique VM ID would be generated, and then it would be invalid. But basically what happened here, that in a recent scenario, that like if you would upgrade the Linux, go to the higher version, that would basically disturbed as well. Or in a Gen 2 machine, if you would, sometimes if you would restart the VM, and mean it would land on a new hypervisor, which has some new logic, could also happen that the key is invalid. So basically, fixes install the new license key, but generally it's being checked that those kind of stuff is not happening on the background. He would mention PPG, kind of let me not maybe talk too much, so the update metrics, as SAP Tune, for the Linux, it's also a recommendation, monitoring, and some customers in scenario on how to do troubleshooting, for example, on a HANA, on a performance issue, especially on the disks. Yeah, and interesting, the R3 load for HANA-based systems. So typically, it's not a recommendation, especially for those tables with a huge, like bigger of 2 billion rows. Okay. Not the ideal part, as that would increase the downtime. Yeah. So what was the 15 is the VM freeze due to memory exhaustion. What can happen? Not nice. So again, way how to tackle it, which parameter on a kernel Linux parameter to set it up. Some new. It's really huge. It's really huge. Huge. New HANA large instances. I think that would be basically more or less on the end. So very welcome, very nice, written, sorted, summarized. A lot of new stuff, new updates. People should check it.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of content in here. Perfect. Good.
So I think we can start with Philip the Great.
Exactly. Philip, I guess, I hope most of the audience know you already, but maybe you can still quickly introduce yourself again, and then, let's see.
Yeah, thanks, Holger, Goran, Dr. Bob. Thanks for being back on Fridays from Waldorf. So I'm a team colleague of Goran, working in the Azure Global Customer Engineering space for SAP on Azure and Azure VMware Solutions. And today I'm going to talk about cost management, a topic that is probably very prominent for a lot of our customers. They want to have control. They want to know all the details about their costs, especially in Azure. And let me start by simply showing how it looks when you open up the Azure dashboard. You have a very nice graph. You have all the different topics with the different Azure products associated to it. You can drill into them. And also here, you can see your cost over time. But sometimes we want to know more about, for example, how much cost is associated to, for example, a whole SAP landscape. You see compute in the existing solution, you see your storage, you see your networking, but you do not really see, for example, how your SAP ECC system is configured and how much it costs basically then in the backend. That's why Rob Wilson, a colleague from the US, created a dashboard, and as a next step, we now released it on our GitHub repo. So when you go to github.com, Azure, SAP on Azure Scripts, Utilities, or aka.ms, SAP on Azure Scripts, you will find a repo that also concludes the cost management dashboard, which is a very easy Power BI template that we created. And it's, yeah, it is a matter of minutes if everything goes fine and if you have your data ready, and then you can deploy it. So how does it look like? This is basically one overview page. You can see all the different subscriptions. You can see all the different applications. So there is a metadata association, which I'll describe in 3 slides, how we do that. Also, everything is basically built on the standard cost management API that Power BI uses. So whenever you open up Power BI and get data, select get data, you will see that there is Azure Cost Management already built into Power BI, but all the data is stored in Azure. Okay, we are downloading, we are updating the data. We are not keeping something separate. We are not calculating something different. So you'll always see the same numbers in your Azure portal and in your Azure Cost Management Dashboard reporting. That is something that we saw with a lot of customers. So they did some calculations, used Excel, downloaded the data, and 3 days later they compared Azure with the Excel, and then maybe it wasn't looking the right way. So here is a short overview of the process that we run. So we have an Excel that you can store on your OneDrive, for example. It will basically serve as your metadata information. So for example, matching subscriptions or renaming subscriptions. You can also transfer existing cost centers to new ones. What is the example for that? Sometimes when we have new fiscal years, we need to change our tags that the costs associated to a certain application get assigned to the right cost center. Now, when we look at that from a historic point of view, it might be different. So we basically implemented an option to say, here is your original cost center, and everything that was written to A is now transferred into B. And the same applies also basically for tags. So for example, if you're changing or if you're required to change your tag in the future, you will still see the old data associated to your old tags, which is really cool. In case of the grouping, we basically look at tags. That means if you have a tag called SAP ECC, which we'll see in a second, then you will also see all the costs associated to your SAP ECC systems. And this is going through multiple iterations. So you can have a look at this Excel file that is also on the GitHub repo. So how does it look like? This is our Contoso dashboard. You can see here there is basically a prediction into your costs. Here on the left side, you can see a 30-day trend and a 365 trend. So if you apply new recommendations like reserved instances, for example, you will see and the optimization already on the next day, which is really cool because you suddenly have a very nice and easy way to see a trend of your costs. On the right side, we group into the different platform and infrastructure as a service offerings, and you can always drill into them. So when you click on the virtual machine, you will see the costs trends for the virtual machine on the left side. Now, I can't show one because we only have ones with customer data. Here is one of our sample databases that we have as screenshots available. Looking at another one here on the right side, you can basically drill into the different components. So here you can see, for example, your SAP ECC system or your SAP production backups. And this is based all on tags. So if you tagged your infrastructure correct, then everything will show up automatically. And last but not least, here you can also have tags for example, for different companies inside your bigger company. Means we have here Contoso Bikes, Contoso Outdoor, but we also have an SAP department here. And on the right side again, subscriptions, and on the bottom you have all the different applications that influence your daily and monthly pricing. Non-prod and prod is also of interest in a lot of cases. So everything based on tags again, you know how much your production environment costs and how much your non-prod environment costs. Now, how do you set that up? It's basically going to this GitHub repo, download all the files. There is a Power BI template, there is an Excel, there is a Power BI template for your GUI. That means your theme can also be updated with your logo and everything. Then you update the metadata Excel as a next step. The third one is you start up the Power BI dashboard. It will come up with the screen asking you for your enrollment ID, how many months you want to download. Here's one thing to mention. So when you use Power BI desktop, you are limited to 10 gigabytes of data within one query. If you have more data, then you would have to use Power BI with the paid subscription on basically per month. And as a recommendation, we also said monthly usage is probably something where you start with 2 to 3 months. On the summary, you can add a little bit more, something like 6 months. On the reservations as well. And if your environment is not too big, then you can probably also go for 12 months. It's simply a matter of how much data your billing has, and you will see that also in the GUI when you refresh the data for the first time. Yeah, add the infos, refresh the data, publish the report. That's basically it, and you would already have a drillable, and I think that's the really cool advantage here. You can always drill into the details. So let's say storage again, or you want to have SAP and storage, then you simply click on the different items, and there you go.
In the meantime, I also opened up the GitHub page. So yes. I think there's also a beautiful documentation and how to get started actually. But so the flexibility really comes via the Excel file where I have the possibility to easily map the metadata as required, where I can also rearrange, if I understood you correctly, also later on.
Correct.
Some of the configurations.
Yeah, let me reshare my screen as I only shared PowerPoint. So here's the GitHub repo, here's the cost management, and in the subscription metadata, you have an Azure Advisor file that you can download from the portal, and then you have the subscription metadata that is the important one. So let's download this file here.
And while you do this, I also saw that you're already on version 3. So this is not something that you're just releasing now and testing for the very first time, but this is really something. And you said you had some customers already also using this. So
yes, correct. So we it was basically built on customer request. So we had this scenario with one customer. Then we saw that from Rob basically evolving over time, and then we said, hey, let's make it publicly available. Let's put it on GitHub, and then we created this Contoso image.
So exactly. Christian Klein said in the interview with the asug members that really working together with the customer and really having some real life examples and then making it publicly available via GitHub.
Yeah, correct. That's basically the same story.
Really
so here
nice.
You can see the subscriptions, subscription IDs, you can give them names, you can associate the applications, you can have owners for the subscription. Then you can have application name here. So I'm overriding Contoso bicycles with Contoso bikes.
Okay.
So, you know, people sometimes name it different. Sometimes they add one space too much, for example, and then you can't do anything because it already happened. So your data is already generated. And that's the cool thing about the Excel. So you can say, hey, I did this mistake here. I know that I have half a month of wrong data. I don't want to lose this half a month. So you create a rule, refresh the data, and there you go.
Really nice. Yeah.
So same here on cost management override. You can say, hey, this is my original cost center. This is my overwritten cost center, and then a little small mapping on Azure regions.
And you can also group it per SAP SIDS, for example.
Yeah, everything is based on tags. So if you create an SAP SID tag, then it would be grouped by SID or by system landscape. So let's call it SAP ECC or SAP BW, or you call it, I don't know, AB1, AB2, AB3, then you have your SIDs in there.
Okay, so it would just use the tag as a kind of grouping mechanism without, regardless what does that means, right? So,
yes, correct.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter what it says. So here, for example, the SAP ECC is a tag.
Mm-hmm.
And then here, for example, the customer needs to do a little bit of work because the NA, so not assigned tags, is basically spending most of the monthly costs.
Okay, yeah. But this also means you can get easily started. Maybe you have a few systems already tagged, so you can already start using the dashboard. You already see the information of the systems, the components that you have already tagged, and then step by step you can work on your Azure subscription and begin tagging additional resources, and then the dashboard will also get better and better.
Correct. So one customer in the UK, for example, they started with one of their subscriptions that was basically related to SAP, and now they rolled it out on the complete company. The whole company is now using the cost management dashboard, and of course they added additional value, and we had some feedback loops with them, and for example, the projection is something that we added because of them, and then everything feed it back into the product.
Cool. And you're right. I mean, this is not related to SAP. I mean, this can also be used for any resource on Azure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm a customer and I want to use it. I just go to GitHub. I follow the instructions there. Now, what happens if I want to have additional features? Can I just create an issue or pull request?
You can create issues and pull requests. Yes.
Is someone looking after them?
Yeah, we are looking after them. Now we cannot promise that everything will be implemented, of course. But if it's a feature that we see as an additional value to the whole community, then you can, of course, add that, and we'll work on that. And the other option is, of course, you can simply continue to work with the one you created and add your additional capabilities, because all the data is already there. And then you say, hey, I don't want to have, I don't know, a number or a diagram. I want to have a gawk there and have a different kind of display, or add, I don't know, a super management overview that you want to have. Or a page. I saw one customer adding a page where they simply had the 5 biggest subscriptions with numbers and so on. So there is basically no limit to that. We just want to have the ability to get the customer kind of quick start, because then they can simply jump on that, and it's an easy way.
Cool. Well, really great. I definitely need to check this out. So sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Good. Then I think we're almost done, or we are actually done. I don't have any additional information. This is a much shorter episode than the ones that we had before, which I think is also good. But so thank you very much, Philip, for joining. Again, I'm sure with all the backlogs that you have in place that we will have you on the show back again pretty soon. Let's see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. With this, yeah, thank you very much. I don't know, Goran, Robert, do you have anything else?
No, from my side, nothing.
Okay.
You're on the
Goran,
mute,
you're on
Goran.
mute.
Goran, you're on the mute.
The famous
Sorry, I'm
sentence,
on mute.
you're muted.
Yeah. So I know Philip is preparing some other stuff in his kitchen, for the future.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
A little bit of beef with salad and
Yeah. Actually, Philip is also a good cook, with some official stars, So, we had the Ralph recipe, Ralph is more Bavarian star of cooking, so with grilling, and barbecue.
I'm sending kernöl to Ralph on a regular basis.
Okay.
So next guest requirements is every guest need to bring some recipe together and then present something. Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Then thank you much. Thank you very much, everyone, and talk to you next week again.
Yep.
Have a great week.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.